So you've obviously got some terrific legal and fiscal and governance insights from around the table. I thought the perspective I'd take mainly because my life has really been around either sales and client interaction or managing people involved in sales and client interaction. And a lot of that has been about recruitment, and I have participated on several boards. I'm actually not on an active board right now, which is, I'm just coming off a series of assignments at work that made that a little challenging. But what I thought I'd do is give you a little bit of a profile around some of the learnings I've had. And I'm thinking about it really from your perspective, like when you're recruiting and looking for people from two perspectives. One is, making sure you identify exactly what you're looking for. And two, how to make yourself as sexy as possible, right, to that audience. And I think that's a bit underestimated as in terms of what could possibly attract people. There's always, I think, in not-for-profit, the irony that almost everyone who's involved at some point has a reasonable level of self-interest. And that self-interest may be just an ego play, it may be just a business play, it may be your passion, it may be but there's something in it that really is for me. And I think you have to look at your board members that way. I think when you lose that connectivity and self-interest for the board members, you probably have lost the board members. I have the good fortune of, being an employee of what is probably Canada's largest corporate donor throughout my career. And so it's given me exposure to, and I've worked in 5 different provinces, so as I move around, I end up leaving a board and coming to a new community and often being invited within minutes, usually to be treasurer of a particular board. So I do have one hard, fast rule, which is I don't join a board for 6 months of arriving anywhere. And the reason for that, and I actually insist on that from my management team when they come in and take over, mainly because, no matter how dedicated they are to the cause, I want to make sure that they understand that there is no, I look at participation on boards and participating in the community as a volunteer activity, and while it's deeply appreciated, it's no substitute for actually executing against your mandate and fulfilling the primary obligations of your role. And anyone who's coming into a management role for the first several months, they really need to meet their team, understand their role. So that's just one of the pieces that I look for. I did see the transparency piece on the, that's actually the one that I went to immediately, Allison, because that's number one for me if I'm going to be participating on a board. If there's any concerns around transparency, and if you're not promoting transparency, that can be something that can be really concerning for the people that you're working with. So the first thing I guess I look at on a board would be what's the composition, who's on the board, and even a little deeper than that, I really want to know, is there an executive committee? Are there other committees on there? What's the expectation in terms of the executive committee? Who's going to be the next president? Have they worked that out? Are you actually recruiting me to be an executive level at some point in the near future? Or are you recruiting me to be an active member? If so, active in what? And so if I can't get a really good, transparent view of that, and it's, come aboard and we'll get a sense of it, I get a bit of a cold feet. And I think what's really going to be critical to anyone who's considering a board membership is really what's the sustainability? What's your sustainability model, right? And obviously a not-for-profit or charitable organization, there is a constant tension between being financially responsible and doing the good work we want to be doing and completing what we want to be doing. And so a lot of the boards that I've been on are actually composed of a combination of stakeholders, including deeply passionate, caring people about the event, and occasionally people like me who throw cold water over everything. Not to dwell to quell the passion, because I can be really passionate about things, but I really think that you're not accomplishing anything if you're heading, for a disaster. So the sustainability, we have to work within what we can do. I was on a health board at one point, which is a major disease, and I won't go into individual names, but maybe 30 people on the board from various provinces, and really deeply passionate people, and half the composition of the board were either afflicted with this particular debilitating disease or closely related to someone. And I think I was there 3 years. In that short tenure, we lost several board members. So you get really, really connected personally to it. But the decision has been, at times, and the conflicts were always around research or wheelchairs, right? So we're going to take away 100 wheelchairs of funding next year to be able to live up to our commitment or increase our commitment to research, and vice versa. So some of those things really, really, I think, I think when you can find a higher purpose, and those are the kinds of boards that I really found myself working hardest for, is what's the purpose, where's the mission statement for the group. I think you have to be really clear too. Are you offering a grassroots, roll up your sleeves, scrub the floors, do the dishes, balance the books, be available for every event kind of opportunity? Because there are people out there who are actually looking at that, and I did a lot of that early in my career. I don't have any interest for today, mainly because I did a lot of that early in my career. I just feel I have a different contribution. I can be a little bit more tactical, a little bit more strategic, and that's okay for me today. But there's no reason you don't want to be recruiting that grassroots, roll up your sleeve, get involved. Obviously, with the organization I work with, I often look at the priorities for our organization. You may or may not know, but we made a 5-year pledge to spend $100 million touching 1 million kids in Canada with through various ways, mainly through mental health. So anything, even including the arts, that can help a kid get off the street or help develop a child early in life. Those are the kinds of things that, because there's a connection, now that's got, I can make a connection to my work. And if you get a sense of the people that you're looking for, and you can get a sense of what that altruistic mission is, without losing sight of that self-interest. I was actually on a board, I have to share this with you, it was a provincial franchise association, and I was there for very mercenary reasons. I was actually heading small business in that province at the time for my employer, and franchises are probably the biggest consumers of small business loans, so I had good reason to be there. But everybody on that board, the entire group, as much as it was a non-profit, everybody was there for profit. And so not one of my most pleasant experiences, but it was transparent, and everybody knows, and it's all about, if I'm on the board for RBC, I'm doing everything within my power to make sure Scotia and Bank of Montreal aren't, which wouldn't be the case if it's for a hospital or a major disease or something along those lines. I will say that from the perspective of arts organizations, right, which I suspect are dominant in the room, I think that you've got something very unique to offer, and something that really appeals to me, and obviously to Joel and Leslie as well. And there's just a different. First of all, it's a different crowd from some of the corporate boards or some of the corporate feeling boards that we get into, and it provides us with a life experience that maybe isn't that easily accessible, and I think it's an important one for you to really profile and bring out. The opportunity to go to a theater opening or to a gallery opening, or those are pretty kitschy things for a guy who spends his day in a suit and is always preaching compliance and walking the line. And it allows me to involve my spouse, which is something that rarely occurs in a lot of these boards that have maybe a bit more, especially that, I've been on a lot of chambers and business associations and the like, those types of boards, and really deep self-interest. But, it's great too. It's networking, it's getting into business, and that's terrific. But that isn't really what I find in arts. In the arts world, you're constantly, and I don't think anybody's in this for the money. Somehow it ends up being worth millions. But nobody goes in thinking that or believing that. And so it really allows us to, who have very little creative instinct, to actually, walk in that world for a while. And I do think you want to manage that. The things that are really immediate turnoffs, and I thought I'd share those also, is I think you really want to make sure that you're constantly thinking about the mix on the board. I don't have a lot of appetite for boards that are basically the tools of the executive director. And I do a lot of due diligence before I'll join a board. I want to talk to some of the board members. I want to talk to people who interact with the organization, basically because I want to make sure that I understand what I'm going to be into, because I'm not looking to join a board and not be inactive. I want to be engaged. I want to be involved to the capacity that I can. I want to understand my role very clearly. So you want to understand what the roles are that you're going to be looking for out there. And there are times when the fit is important, right, for you. I think what you really, and I'll describe fit is there are really a lot of talented people out there, but they have different capabilities. I once had a team of individuals, and they had geographic responsibility, and they were bounce off the wall, high energy, A-type individuals, about 8 of them on the team, and high profile, high flying, and really passionate about their work. When one of those roles opened up, I had about 20 people with the same profile apply, and the last thing I need in that room is another one of those, right? What I now need is a mature, composed, paced sage, and that's what I need to put in the room, which is nothing like what's in the room now. Somebody who thinks maybe will aim and then shoot. You know what I'm talking about. Reverse that. Give me a room full of sages who are composed, well thought out. Everything is really, there's real safety in this room. I now need somebody to unplug their phones while they're not looking, right? I need somebody in that room who's going to take the staples out of their stapler every time they leave the office. I need somebody who's going to just, do things that are a little bit more erratic. And I think, so that's the example I use when I'm telling somebody who looks exactly like, who believes that they're exactly what I need for the job, that fit's important. And I think you want to have that kind of composition on your board as well. You want to do a little bit of and I really like the idea of staggering the board tenure so that you have a constant churn and a constant turnover. And if you are the executive director, the hardest part is actually losing that control. And I think you really have, especially on board composition, if you want a board that's going to challenge you. If you don't want a board that's going to challenge you, handpick them all, make sure they're all yes people. But it's not very interesting. And it's probably going to restrain what the board can actually do. There are killers. You need liability insurance. If you don't have liability insurance, I can't be on your board. And I think a lot of people who think it through will actually come to that conclusion. I need to know where the potential reputational risk is. When I attach my name, I'm actually, you're not hiring me because my name is Mike Haley. You're hiring me because on my business card there's a lion logo. And so I know that. And so reputational risk is really critically important for me. Not so much for me personally, but for my employer, it's a deal breaker, right? Because you're going to use my name on the board not my name, but my employer to leverage the strength of your board, because I work for a strong brand. You're going to use that brand to attract other board members. And so you have to be, I'm conscious of that. You have to be conscious that I'm conscious of that. Obviously the financial risk, legal risk, everything that goes into it, we need to have a pretty good line of sight. We need to understand what your vision is. And what's the contract? So for me, and I think for a lot of people who join boards, it's a kind of a combination of higher purpose. Why am I going to feel good about doing this? What's the vision that you're carrying? And there's that I think everybody's got a self-interest buried in there somewhere, and you got to find it. And so, you know, like I said, for me in the arts, if it's an opportunity to exchange with really interesting people, I'm absolutely awestruck by the content of the room today. I realize you paid $20 to come in here. I'm not sure that you're going to get your money out of this. Well, not out of me, but it's almost worth that just to take a look at these here. And and I'm used to talking in front of large audiences. They're usually paid to listen, though, so it's not quite not quite the same thing today. And anyway, that's you know, more than happy to give you any insights or you know, you know my name, so I'm easy to find if you're ever looking for, you know, what ideas on how to attract, because I think it is a recruitment job to actually put a board together, and you're never done the minute you think you are. The other thing I always wanted to mention is I don't think I've ever been on a board that didn't have cliques or almost alliances, and so a really good chairman can keep those in check and keep those from getting away from you. A really poor executive director will feed them. So I would be very cautious about that. And if you're on a board and you can feel an alliance between certain board members, but not me, with the executive director, you start to lose interest pretty quickly. So it's important that there's good connectivity there, but you want to make sure that it stays healthy.